Good morning and welcome to Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee number 4 for 2021. I can see that all councillors are in attendance. Are there any declarations of interest, matters on the agenda? There are none. Moving on to item number 1, which is the report Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee number 3, and we're just going to receive and note the minutes of that meeting. I'll move that if I could have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jonick. Any discussion around those minutes particularly? No, that being the case, I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Item number 2 is notice of motion response, customer service. Would anyone like to speak to the relevant council officer with regards to this report? No. I might, if I may. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, Councillors. Sam Pengelly, Customer Services Coordinator.
Now, just noting for the committee, we're all aware that this was a notice of motion response to the notice of motion proposed by Councillor Ireland. When this notice of motion appeared in our committee for the first time, we chose to send it to full council for discussion there so that Councillor Ireland could be involved. I have spoken with her this morning. She's happy for us to have general conversations around this to inform some of those discussions for Council Ordinary in a couple of weeks' time. That being said, some of the commentary around the response to the notice of motion particularly has been around what customer service will look like in the future, and the report does note that there's work happening behind the scenes, and the Mayor and councillors are very aware of the new customer experience strategy that's underway. And to bring greater clarity to the notice of motion, and I thank you for the work that's gone into this, I guess the point of the notice of motion in my conversations with Councillor Ireland was about achieving an end result that the constituents were happy with, and that was easy for us to communicate. Presently, there's confusion with people who opt to use the online service for lodging requests or complaints versus those who use the contact centre instead, and how people follow those complaints is different based on the journey you're placed on by virtue of you either doing it yourself online or through the contact centre, and there's no cohesive way of amalgamating those so that constituents know exactly where their request is at. So I know it's early days for the strategy development, and I know that the end goal is to get to a place where the customers will have greater visibility over their interactions with council. But in these early stages, are there any signs that we will be moving to a more central contact point for individual customers, so that whether they're calling or whether they're processing their inquiries or complaints online, that they would be able to follow that in real time as their requests are being actioned internally here at council?
Thank you for the question. I guess we understand that there are many different channels that customers can contact council and submit requests. We're also conscious that the experience across those channels can be inconsistent, and there isn't fantastic visibility at this stage. I think I might leave the answer to that particular question to Sam Chandler, who'll talk to Motion B, which is more the future state and the customer experience strategy. What I can provide, if the council would like to hear, is an update on some of the immediate actions that we've taken in response to the notice of motion. That
would be great. Thank you.
So we undertook an initial review of 12 months worth of service request data, and we identified the top 5 service requests. The top 5 are responsible for around about 75% of the volume that comes through My Ipswich. We engage with those process owners to map the current process and identify the existing customer touchpoints, and a series of direct actions were identified from that. So there were 4 of them. The first one is that the infrastructure and environment division are actually undertaking their own process review. So IED are responsible for a significant number and proportion of the service requests. They've identified opportunities to utilise existing system functionality to improve the communication they have with customers around that visibility and transparency of outcomes. They're looking to implement some standard texts, roll out some training for their staff members, and their aim is to have those texts in place by 30 June. The second action is there's an opportunity to review the automated correspondence that customers receive when they submit those requests. There is a generic acknowledgement and a generic closure message, and we've engaged with the vendor to understand system functionality and develop some detailed requirements about how we might better tailor those closure messages in particular to provide more meaningful information to customers.
What's the early feedback we're getting there? Will we be able to implement something that's different from what the current state is now?
So that we are engaging with the vendor to understand that functionality and then developing those detailed requirements. We would then need to submit that for a quote. Mm-hmm. One of the outcomes that we would like to achieve is that we would like to be able to provide some tailored closure messages that actually relate to the request and the outcome. At the minute, the message received is generic, and if multiple requests are submitted, it's not always clear what the closure relates to.
Yeah.
We've had a look at one of the top 5 service requests come through the customer service team. And their role is to either respond with information or to triage and then allocate to another team within council. We've identified an opportunity that where we do allocate to another team, there's sometimes a bit of a gap between the customer submitting that request and then hearing back on the outcome of that request. And so we've commenced communication of an update to those customers to advise that we've triaged and allocated to another team. And so that will immediately improve. That has been implemented. And then the final opportunity is regarding a customer satisfaction survey. I guess one of the challenges in directly responding to the notice of motion is the ability to actually identify the service request in particular that are driving the biggest discontent. We focused on the top 5 requests by volume because we felt that was the best opportunity for impact. But what we can do is look at an opportunity to implement a customer satisfaction survey and actually correlate customer feedback to specific service request types and gather more quality and actionable data. So again, we're engaging with the vendor. That would require a system change, engaging with the vendor to understand the functionality and developing those detailed requirements, again, to get a quote and move that forward.
So just to make it clear, there will be a cost associated with changing those systems. It would be adding extra functionality to what we presently offer.
There would be a development cost associated with the system changes,
Yep.
And then we would work to identify the particular survey and how we would want to sort of correlate that data to the service requests.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Microphone.
I'm a little confused about this. If we're only looking at 12%, which is what went to my Ipswich, is that right?
Correct.
Is there any analysis of all the dozens that we do?
So there are multiple channels. I guess there are different ways to tackle the question. There are over 2,000 service request types. The notice of motion, as it specifically related to My Ipswich, we focused on My Ipswich and we went for the top 5 requests by volume.
Yes, and I thank you for the report and the analysis. It's interesting in those 5 top things that bins are mentioned 3 times. Hardly anybody ever talks to me about a bin. I just thought that was interesting. Do you think that residents are bringing more complex matters to their council?
I think one of the challenges is being able to identify the root cause of the biggest discontent. So you're right. I think not necessarily the top 5 requests are the ones that drive the largest amount of dissatisfaction in our customer base. And one of the challenges for us is having a system in place where we can have better intelligence in relation to those services that we provide to the community and where we can improve.
And I just have one query. Your number 4 ranked request, and sorry for my ignorance, but other requests, what's that made up of?
So that's a range of different requests. So through My Ipswich, one of the first questions you're prompted to is what does your request relate to?
Right.
There are specific request types, and then there is an other, which is a catch-all.
Yeah.
What we've identified is that all of those, they flow through to the customer services team, and their role is to triage that request. A lot of them, the significant majority are resolved through information, so similar to a contact centre inquiry where the majority are resolved through information.
Okay.
A small portion, around about 25%, are allocated to another team to action, and they vary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor, councillors, Chair. So my name is Sam Chandler, so I'm the Manager of Libraries and Customer Service. So I'll just give you a bit of an update about the customer experience strategy and answer your question about one system, one solution. So customer experience strategy, we've completed the interviews that were a targeted group. The staff survey went out yesterday, and as at yesterday afternoon, we had 42 responses. So not a bad start, but we'll continue to encourage staff to complete that survey because that's an important part of building the strategy is to get that information. Part of the longer term plan with the strategy, once it's developed, is then to develop customer service standards, a customer service charter, and that all then forms part of what the expectations are or customer expectations in the future. We do know part of the challenge that we have is channels. So depending on which channel the customer comes through, they get a different experience. So it isn't consistent. And so one of the solutions is a system. So that is part of, potentially a solution. What we need to understand and will form part of the implementation plan after we have the strategy is what are the priorities. And it's really important that we understand those priorities and we work through those and actually address the issues that are causing the most pain for customers in the right order. So, and that is definitely part of the implementation plan. We need to have reporting, transparency. We need to understand what our customers are telling us, and right now we just don't have that level of data to be able to really dig in and say these are the priorities. So that will all form part of the strategy, will form part of the roadmap, and then the community consultation and the implementation plan will help us to understand what those priorities are. Potentially one way or one process, regardless of channel, is one of the solutions.
Thank you. Do we have a rough timeline as to when we might have a draft strategy that we're able to share and take to the community for that consultation piece?
Yeah, so we're on track for 30 June to have that in place. So there's still quite a bit of work to do, the next stage of that, which is the implementation plan and the priorities, but the actual strategy, we're on track to have a draft of that by 30 June.
That will presumably include a revision of the customer service policy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the report providing details of actions and progress relating to items requested in the notice of motion, customer service, be received and the contents noted. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman, and seconded by Councillor Jonick. I now open that up for any discussion. Mayor.
If I may, Chair, I think it's really important for us to look at the journey we've had in council. Obviously, we've come from a situation where part of the reason why the previous council was dismissed was because councillors were directing council staff, stop mowing here, go and do that. One of the things I noticed in my top drawer in the council chambers when I started was a directory with, it's an older one from the previous council, with every single council staff member's name, their phone extension, and a cross-reference section at the back for issues like mowing and things like that. So I think it's really important to look at our journey as a council. And obviously, council stopped using peak services and went in-house in November 2019. I'm probably been corrected on this. As part of our journey, we, as a new council, have come in, I guess, too. And as a new council, I think my battery's going flat. My apologies, Chair. Thank you, Harrison.
No worries.
My apologies, Chair, for that. So we had peak services. In 2019, it went in-house. Obviously, a new council was elected. We were sworn in April 2020. We don't have divisional officers, and certainly when we came in, the 8 councils had 2, I guess, electoral office staff to assist them, and then that obviously went back to, that took 9 weeks for that to be fully staffed. COVID was there, a new customer service policy where every customer service request must go through the service centre before coming to us. For efficiencies and things like that. And I guess I just want to be really cognizant that we are on a journey to improve customer service. We're also trying to do it so it's quicker for residents, it's a better experience for residents. I know myself, last year I think my bin wasn't picked up when I got home at 7 o'clock at night. I literally stood on the curb, used my Ipswich, put in missed bin, and when I left the next morning, the bin had already been picked up. So, if I had to wait for a call centre or my council office, it would have taken much longer. So I think there's a lot of efficiencies, and we're wanting to make things, I think, more cost effective as well as improve things for the people of Ipswich. So I think it's really important for us to know that we're actually on a journey and we're taking considered approaches in this. It does mean things are different to what used to be here, but it does mean that there's been cost savings and we can spend more money on other things like on roads and community development, things like that. This particular notice of motion only asked for the My Ipswich, which is the online ones, to be looked at, which is only 12% of the requests. I do note that. I want to thank the organisation for being really open and honest when it looked at the key issues that were identified. It can be hard when you looking honestly at your organisation. I want to thank the council for saying that some of the key issues are council does not have a standard approach to communicating, engaging with customers in relation to the requests. The council does not have a coordinated, integrated framework for gathering and leveraging customer feedback or a correlation between services and experiences. But also we don't have a single system for end-to-end management of customer requests, and that's not been adopted council-wide. So I want to thank the organisation for being honest. That can be quite difficult, and I thank you for your courage in knowing that we'll work with you side by side as we try to improve things for residents. And thank you for the work underway with the Infrastructure Environment Division process review, also reviewing the automated acknowledgement and closure correspondence, but also how we deal with the other requests, as the Deputy Mayor mentioned as well. I think it's really important for us to have a considered approach to make sure that we do include everyone as part of this customer experience strategy. I've certainly filled in my survey and had my interview for that, and I'm hoping all the councils are part of that. And I hope that that draft strategy does come to us councillors for some review before it does go out to the public as well, because obviously we get a lot of feedback from the public, so we'd love to plug that in. Really excited about seeing what the customer service standards are and getting feedback from the community on that. And really look forward to this work. I'm sure Council Island will have more to say to this when this comes to the ordinary council, but thank you very much for this report.
Just through you, Chair, noting that being in a service industry all my life, whatever you do really always comes back down to customer service. So customer service is going to always be a journey, and it's always going to be moving and improving. And by us looking into it, and I think that from what I'm hearing, our constituents just need to know what we know. So if we don't know the answer, they are aware of that and know that someone's looking into that for them, and then they know that we're just getting feedback. There's a continuation of knowledge share, basically. So I know that in my past, clients have always been happy for me to say, look, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to get back to you this week. And when you do that, that's fine. It's just keeping that connection and keeping them informed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's corporate maturity, really, at its absolute core. There's businesses all around the world who are grappling with this 15 years ago and fixed it and are doing a wonderful job doing it. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. I don't think that the strategy will tell us things that are new and surprising to us. I think that it'll identify where are the big changes that we can make immediately to make the customer service experience better for our constituents. We're all acutely aware as councillors that, the complaints that we get are very different from the complaints that sometimes go through to the contact centre or through the My Ipswich portal. They're complex and there's many layers, and it's difficult for us, within the rules and regulations that we abide by here, to have quick access to that information too. So the many different touch points doesn't make it easy for the customers, and at the core of the notice of motion, I believe that's what Councillor Ireland was saying, that she wanted to be a part of the solution, and offer that up, in a very public way through the notice of motion, saying, hey, we're getting all of this resistance, and a lot of the feedback coming through, our divisional officers is, what are you doing, and how can we better contact council, and we don't necessarily want to bother you. We want to check up on our own complaints. So the initiative is there from the members of our community, but it's also a costly exercise for us to support them with, software, and, what does it look like from our end. At some point, we're going to have to make a budget decision around what the most important things are to action first, and it will be a slow burn to get to where the ultimate state will be, where when people contact us, they get to the right person, they get the right information, the communication is excellent, where, okay, we didn't get back to you this week, but we'll get back to you next week, and you either get that phone call or you see it on the online portal. When I took the survey and I gave my feedback verbally to the team that were conducting the survey, I said to them, I know technology isn't the be-all and end-all of everything, but in this instance, I think technology could be the saviour there, and I really look forward to some of the creative solutions that we see in this strategy, and excited to see that, we'll be ready to take it to the public to see what they think by 30 June. I think that is a really respectable deadline for what is a huge job ahead of the organisation. So thank you. Councillor Kunzelman?
Like you, I look forward to the report, but I also look forward to a concomitant education program for the public.
Absolutely.
To make it as simple as possible.
Hear, hear. With all the discussion finished, I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous and carried. Moving on to item number 3, Ipswich Community Groups Governance Program. Would anyone like to speak to the relevant council officer with regards to this new program?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Kunzman. Thank you, Ms Dower.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. CEO Melissa Dower, Community Development Manager.
Thank you, Ms. Dower. I just wanted to speak to you about this program, and recognising that community groups are one of the strengths of our community. Can you advise us how this will improve the governance for community groups in Ipswich?
Most definitely. Community groups are manned by volunteers, and often you will find members of a community group, a committee, a mum or a dad who's put their hand up to be involved to ensure that their children are attending their extra curriculum. So therefore their skill set is often varied due to their experience. This is an opportunity to bring community groups across the city, and there is quite a few, together so collectively they can work to build up their confidence and skill set, but also an opportunity for us to work collectively with community groups to increase the level of relationships.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ms Dow, to the Chair. I think this is fantastic, being someone who's been a volunteer and been on that path for the last 3 decades on this area. I think it's fantastic. And under one of those points is generating income. Will you be covering how to apply for grants at the federal, state and local government level as well?
Most definitely. Recently, we do have the funding workshops where we had 75 community groups express an interest. Therefore, there's definitely a need within the community to be upskilled in that area. I think it's really an opportunity as well to increase the level of understanding of the federal state, the Bendigo Bank grants and other opportunities and ways to generate income that isn't just reliant on funding, the social enterprises and et cetera and other funding streams.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Dow.
Thank you.
That's it. Now open that up for any discussion. Yes, Councillor Kunzelman?
Thank you, Chair. We attend a lot of community group meetings, like residents associations and PNCs and so on.
Mhm.
And there's certainly a great deal of variability in the ability of those members to actually grasp what they're actually doing. And so I see great benefit in preparing community groups to better self-manage and contributing to their probity and their resilience. It is my feeling that the whole community will benefit through the strengthening of this community capability, and I will take a keen interest in supporting the program.
I agree. I think this program outlines the effectiveness and the simplicity of our community development strategy. It didn't have to be an exhaustive document to kind of foster the outcomes that we want. This is one of the first programs that's rolling out underneath that strategy, underneath the capacity building and resilience pillar, and it was obviously clearly identified by council officers, particularly Melissa Dower, who has been fielding a lot of community groups by way of referral from both Councillor Kunzelman and myself, and the feedback has been that these groups, they're passionate, they're energetic, they want to do good in the community, but their back end isn't, 100%. So identifying that as a need and rolling out this program to better educate, I think it's a wonderful thing for the community, and I support this program, and I'm keen to be involved and learn a few things myself in that way. Mayor?
If I may, Chair, I think and a lot of people first take on the responsibility of being an office bearer of a not-for-profit. I know myself in my 20s, I was very nervous. Would I do everything right? And you worry about the legal side, and you get very. So this is, I think, really great to just build people's confidence. We know when I spoke to, whether we go to Girl Guides or PNC or sporting groups, we're having reports that there are fewer people volunteering. So maybe this will help people be more confident to volunteer in local groups. But I also say that in my 20s as a volunteer, when I first started taking those office bearer roles, that actually gave me confidence in my paid job, in my career to stand up and chair things and lead meetings and be more confident. So I'd say to people that my experience is that you'll get more value yourself than probably the organisation. That's the beautiful thing about volunteering. It just comes back to you in spades. So I think this is great, and I recommend anyone who's kind of thought about it or thinks a friend should do it, maybe the two of them they could do to be part of this program.
Councillor Kunzelman?
Just one other comment. This may help to close the gap with the lack of young people.
Yeah, hopefully it's a roadmap.
Yeah, if they're confident, if they become confident, they will be more likely to volunteer.
It does feel like a really great roadmap to engaging people, and getting community groups fired up again. It's something that we see all across the city, is the lack of young people and the next generation to come through and take the reins, but we want to empower people. We want them to find it interesting and exciting to be a part of their community, and to give them the tools to do it properly. And I think that's what the capacity building and resilience aspect of this really speaks to. So,
and I think, Chair, even in the 90s when I first started, we had the same issue. It was always how do we get the younger people in, so it's a perennial issue. And I didn't ask Ms Dow about the time frames of when, is there a proper program out, or is it just letting us know that they're looking at doing it? I didn't ask.
Yeah, I'll take that question and
Ms
we'll
Dow,
get
just
back
to find
you.
out. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm getting word from the back next month. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Janik, you're good? Perfect. Awesome. So we better move in second that the Ipswich Community Group's governance program be noted. So I'll move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kunzelman, thank you. We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And it's unanimous. Moving
Just
on.
through you, Chair, before you move to the next item,
Yes.
I need to declare a conflict of interest.
No worries.
So in accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I, Councillor Nicole Jonik, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item number 4, titled Event Sponsorship 2021 Winter Nationals. The name of the related party is Willowbank Raceway. My relationship with the related party is my husband is a life member and he holds a life member pass. The nature of the related party interest in the matter is obviously our recommendation here for sponsorship, and that value of that sponsorship is $35,000. So I invite councillors to determine if I can continue to participate in the decision process.
Thank you, Councillor Jonik. I move that. You've got the wording there. Thank you.
There's a bit before, I wouldn't mind some advice from the acting CEO. Obviously, under the Act, what is a declarable conflict of interest? It's my understanding if someone's, it's only a conflict if that person's an office bearer. I guess I'd ask through the chair if is your husband
ordinary membership not being
ordinary membership or being a patron is not a declarable conflict of interest. Whatever you decide,
Cool.
Councillor.
Thank you.
Definitely is up to you, but I just want to get from the legal perspective what the view is.
Thank you, Mayor. I do believe that you're accurate in that point. I would always advise that it is best to err on the side of caution and to declare these matters, as Deputy Mayor Jonik has done. However, I believe that on this occasion that would not be necessarily a declarable conflict of interest in these circumstances.
Okay. In that case, Chair, may I move that Deputy Mayor Nicole Jonik participates and votes on item 4, titled Civic Event Sponsorship 2021 Winter Nationals, because there is no personal or financial benefit to her or related party, and therefore a reasonable person would trust that the final decision is made in the public interest.
It's seconded by Councillor Kunzelman. Any discussion? We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour?
You don't vote.
And that's unanimous, excluding Councillor Jonik. Well, it's not unanimous then, is it?
It is, because it's all voting, all who can vote.
All those eligible to vote? Unanimous for all those eligible to vote. Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the relevant council officer with regards to the
Yes,
international
please.
censorship? Yep, thank you. Morning, Ms Jordan.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor and councillors. Jo Jordan, City Events Manager.
Hi, Ms Jordan. Just to reiterate how substantial this event is, can you tell me how successful it has been in the past and what number of participants or public it attracts?
Yes, certainly. The Winter Nationals have been running for 33 years at Willowbank Raceway, so it's certainly an established event. When it last was held in 2019, there was 24,000 people that attended that event. It had an independent economic study that was staged, and it determined it delivered $8 million into the Ipswich economy. In that particular year, 91% of attendees came from outside the region. and including internationals, which is fabulous for the city. It also has an impact through broadcast component as well, and I think that's important because it profiles the city of Ipswich at the same time.
Ms Jordan, one of the things I think we've changed in the city is having that citywide events and grouping things together. So this is part of a number of things. Do you mind outlining? Was it the Festival of Horsepower? Is it?
Yeah, sure. So June will see the Festival of Horsepower across the city. You would have already seen the street banners start to go up, and very shortly billboards and a campaign. So what we've really taken is a number of actually Australia's significant events in with respect to the Winter Nationals is the largest drag racing event outside of the US, our Ipswich Cup, which forms part of the Festival of Horsepower, you know, the largest regional horse race in Australia. So we've taken some amazing events and developed new ones alongside them to build them, and I think really have a product that is able to be marketed inside and outside the region, and really sort of showcases in a much broader way to those outside Ipswich what we have on offer.
Do you mind outlining some of the other events that are?
Yeah, so we've got the Gulf Western Winter Nationals, and we also have the Ipswich Cup, Channel 7 Family Race Day. We've got an endurance event at Ipswich Kart Club. We kick it all off with a launch event at the Ipswich Turf Club at their Events and Entertainment Centre. And we've got 2 Days of Thunder, it's the last weekend at Queensland Raceway.
Thank you, Ms Jordan.
That's okay.
Thank you. Yeah. The recommendation is that the Willowbank Raceway receive $35,000, excluding GST, financial support for the Winter Nationals 2021. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Jonik. And a seconder? Councillor Kunzelman, thank you. Open that up for any discussion.
Through the chair, I can't curb my enthusiasm for this event. Just to speak on behalf of the petrolhead community of Ipswich, I would like to say that everyone is biting at the bit for this event and looking forward to it immensely. I know we look at hooning, we look at all those things that bother us in the community, and this is something that people can come to safely with a family, celebrate. It ties in nicely with the Summer Nats, obviously, that's held in Canberra, and then we've got that tag-on event of the Winter Nats, so it's in perfect partnership, and it is well known globally. So it will be televised across our nation and then over to all the other petrol heads, mostly in America, and it's just epic. So I can't wait. And if you haven't been, please go. Bring your earplugs. Expect to cry from the petrol in the air, but take it all on board, and take the family, because it's just it's something that you'll never forget. So, thank you.
The Deputy Mayor's the poster girl for Winter Nationals 2021.
Be if I'm required. just noting.
See the black and white dress there. Chair, if I've obviously Councillor Johnny is the resident rev head, we say, in council. But I just think it's a terrific opportunity. The times I've been out there, it's just a lot of fun. For whole families, not just blokes. It's you can feel the vibrations in the air. You can, and it's just a whole heap of fun out there. So I think it's great that we've it's coming back out here. I'll be fully supporting this. And then when you look at the numbers for the support, the economic development, and what it does for our community, you know, it's a no-brainer for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, proudly supported by Ipswich City Council and the ratepayers. This is, you know, it's about supporting an event that is a wonderful day out, but it's also about, measuring that economic impact back to us and also putting Ipswich on the map. And that's, for me and, and building the reputation of this new council, all of those branding opportunities that are mentioned in the report, they're huge opportunities for us. as an organisation, and for us to, you know, on behalf of the ratepayers, stand behind something that is really, really good for our region.
I'm just wondering, Chair, if we should see if we can get the Deputy Mayor out there on the drags during winter nats.
I'm always out there. I
We should
take
get you
my
racing.
family sedan down there. The old V6 Commodore does 13.9 on a cool day. It's better at night time. But if you look at the measurement of $8 million to a $35,000 investment, what's your return on investment? Like, seriously, like, what better way can we deliver cash in our local government area's economy than something like this, and something that's so heavily celebrated? And I think that it come through from our livability studies as well, just how many of our constituents enjoy motorsports. So bring it on, I say.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You're amazing.
I'm not proposing a supplementary motion, but maybe a throwdown Mayor versus Deputy Mayor out on the drags at the winter nats.
She'll whip me with her experience.
I'll give you a head start.
You're on.
With all of the banter out of the way, I think we ought to take this to the vote. All those in favour? And that's supported unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5 is another event sponsorship, the 2021 Australian Supercross Championship. Would anyone like to speak with Ms. Jordan? Again, any questions for her? Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Jordan.
Jo Jordan, City Events Manager.
Ms Jordan, can you explain to us what the benefits are to the residents of Ipswich for this event to come to Ipswich?
Yes, so we've been in negotiations for 2 years with AME, the promoter of the Australian Supercross Championships. It's a national round series, so we're looking at Ipswich being round 1 of that series on the 16th of October. It really is quite a significant event in terms of its economic impact, but also its ability to profile not only the city but also the North Ipswich Reserve. It is very much an entertainment event. They describe it as the 2020 of cricket. This is the equivalent in Supercross and motorsport. Just to give you an idea, in 2019, 70,000 people attended events that were part of the national series. It will be the only Queensland event proposed. It does travel around the country after it would be attending to Ipswich. It's very conservatively, I might add, because this was all assessed during the height of COVID. We're expecting about 8,000 attendees in the city. They would certainly look for overnight or weekend stays. The broadcast component is significant, and it would profile the venue through Fox Sports, KO, Sky Sports in New Zealand, but also most importantly that all of these international athletes have more than 2 million followers on their channels, so you can't discount that in terms of profile. Does that, yeah?
Yeah, I've never seen Supercross, so I haven't. But I do know in the report it's described as the 2020 cricket of motorsports, so it's obviously gaining attraction.
It's very entertaining.
Right.
It's very much described.
Okay.
It's in that nitro sports sort of style category.
Okay. You also talk about, will we be trucking dirt into the North Ipswich Reserve? So
Yes,
so
approximately
what's happening to the
6,000 tonnes. So we've been working with Don Stewart, obviously, and his team about the protection of the surface of the field. It is ideally timed because it's at the end of the season, and there would be normal restitution that would be undertaken. So there was actually one weekend available, and it happened to coincide with this. We've been working for 2 years to try and make that happen. So we would work with the promoter who does this in world-class venues across the country. So North Ipswich Reserve is no different. We have to protect the service, and we would look at a bond to ensure that that was, obviously if there was any recourse that was required. And that bond would be retained out of the sponsorship monies. to ensure it's returned to its former state.
That's great governance. But we've had a similar event in 2011. The report mentions and
And it was very successful. And not that I was here, but I understand that it was sort of without any significant incident in terms of.
So have Jets been engaged?
So we're obviously at a very, even though it's taken quite some time to get to this point, we're still at that very preliminary stage where we need to obtain council endorsement and approval, which has also been part of the TQ approval, which I can talk about if you like. But we would start a working group, and that working group would engage with all stakeholders. But we do know that it won't impact on their season as such.
Yeah. So that means they haven't been engaged at this stage? We're waiting till...
Not in detail in terms of the logistics of what would happen.
Are they aware that what's going to happen to the field?
Not specifically yet.
They are now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so not specifically yet. It's been an internal conversation
Okay.
Until we are at a position to be able to start those external stakeholder conversations.
And just speaking to the TEQ
Yep.
approval, it says in the report that if there was no approval there, council sponsorship in the event would not proceed, but you have an update on that?
Yes, we do. So we've received an approval still to come through in a contract that the TEQ will commit $50,000 towards the project, and they will also position it as the warm-up event for the World Nitro Games in Brisbane the following week. So that it's a win-win for us because we will be associated with that world-class event. But they will activate the World Nitro Games at this event, which means that we will get access to some of their international personalities and athletes that will be participating. So it's definitely a win-win. So essentially, they've agreed to match the proposed recommendation of funding to come from council. And I think it's interesting to note the promoter did actually request initially $150,000 investment, but we have taken a very, I think, calculated and conservative view and use of council funds to negotiate that to a combined investment between TQ and council of $100,000.
Well done. Thank you, Ms. Jordan. So the recommendations here in two parts, and I'll move them together. The council support hosting round one of the 2021 Australian Supercross Championship and the following event sponsorship commitment should tourism event Queensland co-funding be secured. That A, $50,000 cash sponsorship be provided, and B, waiving of the North Ipswich Reserve venue hire.
And the chance.
Oh yeah, and C, support the event through council's marketing channels. And I'll move all three together. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Donick. Sorry. I open that up for any discussion.
For me, obviously I'm supporting this and I think it's terrific, but I also say as the patron of the Jets, I know the boys love the field. They often tell me it's the best footy field in Queensland, and I was there on Saturday when we played the Tweed Seagulls, and again the players and the the management there talk about the great field. So I guess letting people know that I think and I know how passionate the council staff also to make sure that quality is there, is to make sure that it is returned back to its former state will be something that I'll be keeping a close eye on.
Yeah, I was reassured that there had been a similar event there in 2011, so we might do some backgrounding on that and talk to the IED team about maybe what that experience looked like and how long it did take for them to get back, so you can communicate that reassurance to the Ipswich Jets. And just noting that I've been to a number of these events across Queensland and on stadium grounds, and the rehabilitation of it, obviously it's done professionally, so everything's taken into account. But and again, so excited about this, like the talent that's going to be coming to the city, and then it being broadcasted, and then our facilities getting so much of a mention. It's just wonderful. Well, it's exciting to be the opening round and the spot in Queensland where everyone's coming for it as well. So it's very beneficial. We might remind the organisers of the event of Ipswich's by Ipswich approach, because procuring 6,000 tonnes of dirt locally could mean a significant capital injection for a company here, if they haven't already done so. Moving dirt across Queensland and indeed across Australia, there's lots of considerations to be made with concerns to fire ant legislation as well, so we can help them out with top grade soil and just as a footnote for everyone. With no other discussion, I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's passed unanimously. And that brings us to the close of our committee at 10:49 a.m. And we'll be back here
I'll make it 11:30.
at 11:30.
Thank you.